Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at something kind of personal, but honestly, it's a really common issue too.
Yeah,
Natural remedies for erectile dysfunction.
it's something that,
I mean, you see so much stuff online,
yeah,
like miracle cures and all that. We wanted to really dig in a little deeper.
absolutely.
We found this article on Totkay,
Okay,
and it's a website all about natural remedies.
I see.
And they're kind of trying to blend traditional wisdom with modern research.
Interesting.
So what's really cool about this article is it defines ED as more than just not being able to get it up.
Right, and that's, I think that's really key because it can also be about
Yeah.
maintaining an erection.
Right.
It can be about decreased desire, and also how that impacts your confidence in relationships.
Yeah, that definitely feels like a more complete picture than just like the physical aspect.
Exactly. And that holistic view is what makes the Totkay article so interesting. It even mentions that ED can sometimes be a symptom of another health issue, like, diabetes or sleep disorders, heart problems.
That's kind of like approaching ED as a way to check in with your overall health.
Absolutely. Now, where things get really interesting is where they talk about the psychological side of ED.
Okay.
It's not always physical.
Mm-hmm.
Stress, anxiety, even relationship issues, they can all have a big impact.
Right, because I would imagine if you're already stressed or anxious, worrying about performing would just make it all so much worse.
Exactly. That performance anxiety becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It makes it harder to, it's this complex mind-body connection. And speaking of things that impact the body, the article dives into lifestyle choices and how they impact ED, like smoking, excessive alcohol, a bad diet, all the usual things we hear about.
Okay, but those are things we always hear are bad for us anyway. Is there actually a direct link to those things and ED?
That's where I think the Totkay article really shines. It points out that these habits are terrible for your cardiovascular health. They damage blood vessels and restrict blood flow, which is, pretty crucial for achieving and maintaining an erection.
So it's not just about fitting in your genes, but making sure everything's working properly.
Exactly. The article also highlights the importance of keeping an eye on your blood pressure and cholesterol levels, not just for sexual function, but for your overall health.
Right.
Really taking care of your heart is key for your entire body.
I love that they're looking at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
I know what you're thinking. What about the natural remedies?
Yeah.
That's what we want to know.
That's the good stuff, right?
Let's get into it.
Okay, let's unpack those natural remedies, but, critically.
Yeah,
We're going to examine the claims. We're going to see what the science says. No magic here.
exactly.
And-
Okay, first one, ginkgo biloba.
Okay.
I always thought this one was for memory.
That's right, it is often promoted for that. But in this article, they suggest it may help with ED because it's a nerve tonic and it may increase blood flow.
Okay.
The theory is it strengthens your blood vessels and increases nitric oxide production.
Way back up. Nitric oxide.
Ah, yes. So nitric oxide helps blood vessels relax and widen. And as we discussed, that's really important.
Got it. So ginkgo biloba boosts nitric oxide. Sounds good, but
Yeah.
is there any research on that?
Yeah, and that's where it gets a bit complicated. There have been some smaller studies that show some benefits, but the evidence is pretty limited. It's also important to remember ginkgo biloba can have some side effects like headaches, dizziness, and upset stomach. It's not completely risk-free.
All right, so proceed with caution. What else?
The next one is Panax ginseng. This one's been used in traditional Chinese medicine for ages. The article suggests it might work in a few different ways. It could, like ginkgo biloba, increase nitric oxide production.
Okay.
But it's also thought to help regulate testosterone levels.
Now we're talking.
And there's more. Panax ginseng is thought to impact neurotransmitters in your brain, things like dopamine and serotonin. These can affect your mood, but they also play a role in sexual function.
Okay, wait. Dopamine and serotonin. Those are mood boosters, right? I didn't realize they were involved here too.
Yeah, dopamine is all about pleasure and reward, and serotonin can really impact your mood and libido.
Okay.
So Panax ginseng is a multitasker. It could potentially be working on several fronts.
So is this it? This is the miracle cure everyone's looking for?
Well, hold on. While Panax ginseng seems to have a lot going for it, the research is mixed on whether it's actually effective for ED. There are studies that show positive results and others that don't. And just like with ginkgo biloba, there are some potential side effects to think about. Insomnia, headaches, and even changes in blood pressure.
Okay, it sounded like even natural remedies need to be approached carefully.
Right, exactly. It's about making smart choices and weighing the benefits against the risks. The next one is L-citrulline. It's an amino acid that's found naturally in watermelon.
Watermelon. That's a surprise. How does watermelon help with ED?
Well, it's not the watermelon itself, it's the L-citrulline in it. Our bodies convert this amino acid into arginine, which then helps with, yep, you guessed it, nitric oxide.
Nitric oxide again. So it really is all about the blood flow.
It really is. And the research for L-citrulline is looking a little more promising than the first two. There are studies that show it could improve erectile function, particularly for guys with mild ED. One of the best parts, it seems to be fairly safe with very few side effects.
That is good news. At least one thing has some science behind it and a decent safety profile.
Yeah. Another one the article mentions is propionyl L-carnitine, or PLC. It's another naturally occurring amino acid, and it's thought to help, you guessed it again, relax blood vessels and improve blood flow.
It's all about blood flow, huh? So PLC, good or bad?
The research on PLC is still pretty new.
Okay.
Some studies suggest it might help, especially if you combine it with other treatments like Viagra. We still need more research, though, to be sure about how well it works and how safe it is.
More research needed. What's next?
All right, get ready for this one. It's called horny goatweed.
Wait, is that the real name?
It is, and apparently it's been used in traditional Chinese medicine for a really long time. It contains a compound that they think acts like Viagra. It inhibits an enzyme called PDE5.
Okay, I'm really curious now. We need to break down this PDE5 thing and how it relates to EED. Okay, so we're back, and we're talking about horny goatweed. You said it might work like Viagra. How does that work?
Right, so Viagra works by targeting an enzyme called PDE5. This enzyme is what breaks down a molecule called cyclic GMP, that's a key player in relaxing the blood vessels in the penis, which of course allows for better blood flow and ultimately an erection. Horny goatweed supposedly has this compound that blocks PDE5 too, so it might have similar effects.
Okay, so like a natural Viagra.
Yeah.
But is there actually any evidence for this horny goatweed? Has there been a lot of research?
That's where it gets a bit, I guess, less clear.
Okay.
There's a lot of anecdotal evidence, and it's been used in traditional medicine. But the scientific research on horny goatweed for ED is pretty limited.
Okay.
And a lot of the research we do have is based on animal studies.
Got it.
We need more human studies to really know if it works and if it's safe.
So an interesting possibility, but more research needed. What else is on the list of remedies?
Okay, so the Totkay article also mentions yohimbine. It comes from the bark of a tree in Africa, and it's actually been used for a while as a potential treatment for ED. The way it seems to work is by blocking alpha-2 adrenergic receptors.
Okay, now I'm lost. What are alpha-2 adrenergic receptors, and how do they have to do with ED?
Good question. So these alpha-2 adrenergic receptors constrict blood vessels. So by blocking them, yohimbine can relax blood vessels, and you know where this is going, increase blood flow to the penis.
It's always about the blood flow. But is it safe? I mean, we're talking about messing with blood vessels.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. Yohimbine can have some bad side effects like anxiety, a faster heart rate, higher blood pressure, and in some cases, it can cause even more serious problems like seizures. It's not something to take lightly. It should only be used if a doctor says it's okay.
Okay, so red flag for me there. It seems like some of these remedies might have some potential, but there are also some risks involved. It's really about weighing the good and the bad.
Right, exactly. You have to make smart decisions. And this actually brings us to the last natural remedy they talk about in the Totkay article, maca root. So this is a plant that comes from Peru. It's been used for centuries, both as a food and in traditional medicine.
Maca root. I've definitely heard of that one. What's supposed to be so good about it for ED?
So the article suggests that maca root might boost libido and improve erectile function. It might do that by impacting hormone levels and neurotransmitters in the brain.
Hormones and neurotransmitters again. So we're back to the mind-body connection. Tell me more about that.
Sure, so we don't really know exactly how it works, but some researchers think that maca root could affect the production of hormones like testosterone and DHEA, which are important for sexual function. It might also affect neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, which, remember we talked about those earlier, are also involved with mood, pleasure, and libido.
So maca root might be working on different levels to help with both the physical and psychological aspects of ED. Is there any research on this one?
Yeah, so there have been a few smaller studies, and they do suggest that maca root could improve libido and erectile function, but it's still pretty early in the research. We need more, larger studies to be sure.
Okay, so more research is needed, but it sounds like it's at least worth thinking about, especially since it seems pretty safe, right?
Right. Generally, maca root is considered pretty safe for most people if you use it in moderate amounts. Of course, like with any supplement, it's always a good idea to check with your doctor before trying it, especially if you take other medications.
Good advice.
Mm.
So we talked about a bunch of different natural remedies. Some seem more promising than others. But something that stood out in the Totkay article is that they really emphasize going beyond just supplements. They're advocating for a more complete approach to dealing with ED.
I agree. And they actually get really practical about it.
Okay.
They actually talk about what foods to avoid.
Oh, yeah.
Fried foods, high sodium snacks, all that sugary stuff.
Like the things our parents told us were bad for us.
Right, and we forget how much those things affect us.
Yeah.
They can cause inflammation and high blood pressure and weight gain, and all of that stuff can hurt blood flow and make ED worse.
Right.
The article really makes a point about how what we eat has a direct impact.
It's all connected.
Yeah.
So the takeaway is eat healthy, exercise, and your love life will be better.
Pretty much. But beyond the specific foods, the article highlights that it's really important to have a balanced diet with lots of whole foods.
Yeah.
Fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, foods that make your body healthy and strong.
It seems like this deep dive wasn't really just about ED. It's like a conversation about men's health overall.
I think you're right. The Totkay article kind of uses ED as a way to talk about something much bigger, which brings us to a really interesting question. If you could improve one area of your health, knowing it would have a positive impact on other areas, including sexual function, where would you start?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
It makes you think about what's really important and how taking care of yourself can have all these amazing effects.
Exactly. It lets everyone take charge of their own health.
It's wild how connected everything is, right? Like
Yeah.
we talked about all these remedies, but it seems like the message of the article is really that you need to think about ED as like a whole life thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's where this article is so useful. They even talk about what you should and shouldn't eat, like all that fried food, salty snacks, sugary drinks.
Oh yeah, that stuff, like the things your mom always told you not to eat. It's easy to forget that all that really impacts everything else.
Totally. Those foods can mess you up, like cause inflammation, high blood pressure, weight gain.
Yeah.
And that stuff can really impact blood flow, which obviously impacts ED. It's like the article makes this really good point. What you eat matters for everything.
So basically it all comes back to eat healthy and exercise, and your love life will thank you.
Pretty much. But it's not even just about the bad stuff. It's about eating a balanced diet with lots of good stuff.
Right.
Fruits, veggies, lean proteins, things that are actually good for you.
This deep dive wasn't just about ED, huh? It was more like a look at men's health in general.
It's a really good point. It's like they use ED as a way to talk about something bigger, which makes me think if you could improve just one area of your health, knowing that it would have a positive impact on other areas, including your sex life, where would you start?
Wow, that is a good question. Makes you really think about what's important and how taking care of yourself can pay off in all these different ways.
Right, it lets you take control.
Well, this is really interesting. We learned a lot about ED and natural remedies. Sounds like there's some interesting options, but you got to be careful and do your research. Weigh the good and the bad.
Absolutely. And sometimes the best solutions aren't even in a pill. It's about the choices you make every day.
Yeah.
Taking care of yourself. Making changes to live a healthier life. That's what's really going to make a difference.
I completely agree. And that's what we hope you take away from this deep dive. Information is power. So remember, if you have any concerns about ED or just your health in general, talk to your doctor. There's help out there. You don't have to go through this alone.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.